with a smile on your face. When you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers. We're just at about 7:31 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. I'm your host, Julien Skeete, and in this segment, we are chatting and remembering the life of certainly an outstanding gentleman. One would naturally attach titles like His Excellency, certainly making significant contributions and strides, and you know your impact when it is you are respected, not just here in Tobago or in Trinidad and Tobago, but you have that kind of respect well beyond for your contributions that you have made. Certainly, we are remembering the life this morning of none other than Reginald Dumas. And here on set with us, we have Rodney Piggott, advisor to the Tobago Council of Elders, and also heavily involved in Tobago CivilNet. And the list goes on. Certainly, many areas that would have given you the opportunity to interact with the man himself. And I want us to start from that perspective. What would you say are some of the immediates that you would want to be acknowledged and to be recognized for the man Reginald Dumas?
Right. Thank you, Julian. And first of all, good morning to Tobago Updates, the family worldwide, the listening audiences and so forth. One of the things that I would like to start off by saying is you mentioned many titles that he wore. And the title that he was most proud of in his waning years was an elder. And I want to repeat that to the Tobago public. Elder. Not elderly.
Yes.
Elder. Because you see, when we put the Lee on the end, Julian, what we do know is we're saying this person has some qualities of an elder. They're not a full elder. They have some qualities of an elder. And the qualities that we tend to focus on when we say elderly are the age, they're of high age, and they have some sort of infirmity, they can't get along by themselves, they need help, and so forth. So when we say elderly, that's the sort of mantra that we're putting on the term elder.
Yes.
So we want to say elder full stop and don't lee it, just
yes.
elder. And he was very proud of that. Building that organization, that grassroots organization, and the focus being now to encourage the society of Tobago, the civil society of Tobago in particular, to embrace those who have given of themselves to the Tobago space and are now at an age where that respect must now be given back to them for what they have accomplished and so forth. And so that is one of the things that he was working on in his last days, getting that out.
So I want you to share with us a little bit about the experience. And yes, viewers, we're going to have the opportunity where we're going to get some callers as well joining in with their perspective, sharing their experiences and so on, interacting as we remember the life of Reginald Dumas. But as we await those calls, I want you to tell us a little bit, particularly as it relates to the Tobago Council of Elders. I can't help but remembering in terms of my fond memory and interaction. And in fact, like a child, I know on that occasion, I rushed to make sure I got a photo on the outside, via our Tobago Updates image with these elders. Certainly, we have this scenario that he would have been here, hosted and participated in one of our elder mornings and so on. Tell us a little bit, how was that interaction from the perspective of someone who was so knowledgeable, someone who had served at very high levels, but still had that ability and that common touch?
Oh, he absolutely loved it. They all did. Dr. Mark was part of that also. We have to know that these persons, when they've reached that age, in our African culture, the society gives them that respect and salute them and address them publicly as elders, not old people, not pensioners, not retirees, but elders. And that sort of respect that you get from your society does something to the spirit of a person at that age. It says, I am not forgotten. I am not put on some bookshelf somewhere to collect cobwebs. I don't have to get off the stage and go to some corner and not be seen and not be heard. I still have a lot to give to my people. And at this stage, what I have to give to my people is my experience, which translates into wisdom. Now, not every person that reaches a certain age is an elder. Some just simply grow old. That's possible, and that tends to happen. But we're talking about those persons who practically all of their life, they have dedicated themselves unselfishly to serve the whole, to serve the greater public in their particular space, wherever they are. That has been their life's journey. Yes, they've made mistakes. They're not perfect people. They're human. They make mistakes and so forth, but they learn from those mistakes. They're now able to look back. They're at a vantage point in life where they're now able to see the forest for all of the trees, not just some of the trees, but all of the trees, and see where the potholes are, see the mistakes they have made, the potholes they have fell into, what they could have done to avoid those potholes. And those are the people now you want to share that with you coming up now in your journey. What if you could avoid the majority of those potholes? What if, as a society, we didn't have to make those mistakes that were made in the past? Where would we be today? This is why in African culture of old, before we encountered the Arabs and the Europeans and so forth, our governance structure was one of council of elders advising what we would call the chief or the king. This wasn't just someone out there by themselves. That person was surrounded by a council of elders advising them. This is what the people looked to. So when the people looked to the governance structure, they just didn't look to one person. They looked to that person surrounded by a council. So the confidence they had in that person was basically the confidence they had in that council. They know that when this person opened their mouth, is because they were advised by elders on how to comport themselves, what to say, how to say it, and so forth and so forth. You understand?
Yes.
And so this is what the Council of Elders here in Tobago formed themselves, and this is what they wanted to accomplish in our space, to get that across to the people, first of all, to look at us differently, right? We can now begin to close this gap between the generations, the youth and the elders, because the elders are seeking now to pass the baton of the culture back to the youth coming up behind them. And what the youth ought to be doing in any given society is doing what, Julien? Reaching for the baton.
Definitely.
It's one thing to pass the baton back, but if there's nobody there and the youth is there with their hands behind their back, I ain't taking nothing from you. It's a wasted effort on the part of the elders trying to pass the baton back. It has to be a synergistic sort of action. I'm passing the baton, you're reaching for it.
To be able to reach out in that regard. Again, we want to remind our viewers that the phone lines are open, 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And this is one of those rare occasions, most certainly, within the short time that we have, that we certainly want to give an opportunity for those on the outside to feel free to call in and to connect and to share your views as we remember Reginald Dumas. Remember that, and I just pulled up just a few things in the very long list. A distinguished former diplomat and head of the public service, known in that regard, of course, as Mr. Piggott identified, a member of the Tobago Council of Elders right here in this space, and certainly the accolades go on because he has been known as a political analyst, giving his perspective without fear or favor here in Trinidad and Tobago, respected as a diplomat. Again, a great orator, as some would describe him most definitely. We also see notably here a visiting fellow at Queen Elizabeth's House, Oxford. That's back in 1979 and 1980. He was posted to the civil service between 1959 and 1962, becoming a junior diplomat at the Trinidad and Tobago's embassy in Washington. Extensive diplomatic background as an ambassador to the United States and the Trinidad and Tobago's permanent representative to the Organization of the American States, 1987 to 1988. And between 1985 to 1987, he would have served as High Commissioner to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. I mean, the accolades go on, you know, appointment as High Commissioner to Canada over the period 1980 to 1984, where he served as Commissioner to India, who concurrent accreditation to Sri Lanka, Singapore, Indonesia, and Japan, even before I was born. But most certainly, when you look at the history of this gentleman and coming to a point where he'd be able to come and still settle and connect, very, very impressive indeed. We've got a caller on the line. Good morning to you, caller.
Edmund Home. No music.
Good morning. All right, we seem to be having a little technical difficulties. Good morning to you, caller. All right, so we wait on the caller. Feel free to try again. It's 284-6597, 284-6597. We're remembering the life of Reginald Dumas, certainly significant contributor here in Trinidad and Tobago. What are your hopes in terms of to see as that ideal way in which to remember him? You know, we had in more recent times as well the passing of Ho Choi Charles, and we know without a doubt one of the very big things for Mr. Charles has certainly been that opportunity to see Tobago achieve its autonomy. We also saw the passing of Mr. Basdio Pandey. One of the big things for him as well, you know, is looking forward to seeing constitutional reform in Trinidad and Tobago. What do you anticipate or hope that we can potentially look forward to, you know, as something synonymous with Reginald Dumas?
Well, one of the things definitely is the continuation and the building out of the Council of Elders. We have a lot of elders out there who don't know their elders. One of the things people must understand is that Reginald Dumas was actually learning to appreciate being regarded as an elder. Because as I said, our society has not socialized them to receive that level of accolade. We've often referred to them as old people, pensioners, and retirees, to the point where that is how they refer to themselves. So he had to literally learn to break the habit of calling himself an old person. Right? If I was wrong and he called himself an old person, he would swallow his tongue right away. You know what I'm saying? So that socialization is something that would be a great legacy to him if those elders in the space would cease calling themselves old, because quite frankly, something old is something useless. And this is how we make them feel. You're no longer needed. You're useless. And they're absolutely not. They reached the age where they are very much needed. You've now reached an age where you are critical to your society because you're walking libraries. So I think if the elders in the society would rise up and take hold of that level that they have reached, appreciate themselves as elders, appreciate themselves as those responsible to now pass the culture back to the youth, and then have the youth themselves in the society rise up and look to them as elders and reach for that baton. You understand? And have the entire society, including the media, stop calling them elderly, call them elders, and so forth. That would be a great accomplishment. Another thing that they had their sights on.
Just before we continue, I think we have a caller on the line. Good morning to you, caller. Yes, good morning, caller. All right, We seem to be having some technical difficulties there. Again, to remind our callers, it's 284-6597. The number to call in, 284-6597. Go ahead, Mr. Piggott.
Right. So another thing that they had their sights on initially was that James Park. They felt that could be actually configured as an iconic area where all of our warriors, so to speak, can be displayed there. You have a bust of them or something that, they could occupy that space. And that space now could become now a functional space for the community to now go there and hear lectures, outdoor lectures and things of that nature in that particular space. So that space now has a sense of reverence to it. It's sanctioned as a place of reverence and so forth. That's something that they had in mind for that space. He was also an author.
Yes,
he's an author of several books, and as you stated, Julian, he was humble in that he loved the youth. When the Elder Council first started up, we had several discussion meetings with youth, and we had several at the library. And he insisted, him and Dr. Mack insisted that the chairs be put in a circle, right? So that it doesn't become a talk down to them sort of thing, yes, but a circle where the youth and the elders sat in a circle and had serious conversations. And we had 3 of those that went very, very well. They also met with those that were at the age of like 7. 7, 5-year-old, they met at the library, the children's library,
yes,
sat there with them, and those children were so delighted. And Dr. Mack remarked that shortly after that, she heard the children using the word elder. You see, those are the ones that really get it.
So we get
5 and 7-year-old, they
yes,
get that immediately. So they became inoculated with that term elders. Now, we can get the rest of us now.
Correct. And it's very simple, folks. And I learned it, of course, recently, being reminded of it. We don't say adultly or youthly. You're simply an adult. You are a youth. You're a child. And in the same way, you're an elder. And we certainly respect and appreciate. And in some instances, as I was saying to Mr. Piggott, elders tend to be quite frank at that. As my grandmother would say respectfully, I'm in retirement, and quite frankly, I'm too old to care if you can't handle the truth, but I'm going to tell you it as it is in the circumstances. Very quickly, we want to note Denise Wright. Automotive indicates a true public servant. We also have Shirley Cook indicating to us here on the live, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the value our elders bring will get us to the greatest little island on the planet in the quickest possible time. Be bold, be brave, be proud. Be my Tobago love again. That's community development. And I mean, just pulling out just a few, in terms of the information and, coming to us here for those of you making your comments on the live this morning. I'm also seeing this gentleman in terms of spitting knowledge our way, certainly making that contribution to share. And as a reminder to you as we wind things up, looking at remembering the life of, served as permanent secretary to the Prime Minister, 1988 to 1990, and chaired the Public Service Task Force, ambassador to Washington. Again, achievements and highlights here, really, really recognizing the significant contribution that he would have made in his time here, definitely, certainly. And this is I want to indicate clearly, this is just the start, because there is so much to cover, as I recognize in looking at his life, and we look forward, putting Dr. Mack on the spot, we look forward to hearing from Dr. Mack and others speaking about that experience and that interaction. And she would tell me, we're in the same church together, what are you calling me out on the TV for? But certainly we want to get that opportunity to hear from you as we continue to celebrate the life of none other than Reginald Dumas, indeed making a significant contribution, an elder par excellence, recognized for his contribution, and certainly in many ways, without believing it, folks, These elders have paved ways that ultimately roads that we can drive on comfortably now, not recognizing that they may have very well started off as tracks or no road at all, allowing for us to be able to move along pathways and so on in life. And we want to say definitely thank you. Thank you very much again, Mr. Rodney Piggott, advisor to the Tobago Council of Elders, as we wrap this morning's interview. Very quickly as we close.
Right. So we want to let people know that the body can be viewed at Belgrave's on Friday between 2 and 4 p.m. And from 5 to 8 p.m., the family will be having a celebration of his life at Merci Beaucoup in Buku. All right, so we want people to come on out. There'll be persons who will be given their ovations and so forth. And this will be our opportunity now to do a physical embracing of the family, sharing the love and appreciation we have for this fine elder.
Definitely. Again, sharing stories. 1998, he became the co-founder of Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute and National Chapter of Transparency International. 2004, amidst Haiti's escalating crisis, he was also involved in providing support. Their National Security General appointed Dumas as the special advisor on Haiti. Certainly someone we continue to respect and regard the significant contributions. Thank you once again indeed. Viewers, as we prepare to head on out to a break, we want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.